back onto the second big conversation. One of the biggest talking points in our country right now is what we're taking up on the urban debate. And what we're going to do is put together India's greatest legal minds to debate this hottest topic that is raging across the country. India is divided right now, viewers, over the Citizenship Amendment Bill. Now, this bill has been cleared by the Lok Sabha. In fact, in a rare occurrence, quite unprecedented really, we saw the Lok Sabha debate an issue for 8 hours non-stop yesterday till almost midnight and then vote on it and pass this bill. That's how efficient the Lok Sabha was yesterday. Now, once the Lok Sabha passed this, you saw massive protests erupt across Northeast. This is exactly what we saw in February 2018. The government at that point of time took a step back, decided that ahead of general elections, this is perhaps not the political potboiler that they need. They're going to put the Citizenship Amendment Bill in cold storage and forget about it. It's back now for whatever political gains the government is looking at. But the Northeast is extremely unhappy about it. Tonight, we are going to talk about what is it that makes this bill so controversial. Is it unconstitutional is the big question. The protesters claim that they will be outnumbered in their own home state if illegal immigrants are given citizenship. The BJP has made this entire issue communal is what they are saying. They say this is not communal. They say that it needs to be about outsiders coming in and taking our place, destroying our homes, changing the demographics of Northeast. Tomorrow, this bill will get introduced and debated in the Rajya Sabha. The Congress has already issued a whip to its Rajya Sabha MPs asking them to be present. So fireworks are expected once again. But where do political parties stand so far? We got a glimpse of that in the Lok Sabha. Here is an excerpt, a summary of the debate we saw yesterday in Lok Sabha.
ये कानून जो बनाया जा रहा है इसलिए बनाया जा रहा है कि दोबारा पार्टीशन हो। ये कानून तो हिटलर के उस कानून से ही बदतर है, उस कानून से ही बदतर है। कहां लाकर छोड़ दिया भारत को आप? अगर आपने संविधान पर किया था, हम मुसलमानों का गुनाह क्या है?
ये बिल लाखों करोड़ों शरणार्थियों के यातनापूर्ण नर्क जैसे जीवन से उनको मुक्ति दिलाने का साधन बनने जा रहा है।
It is clear that the Citizenship Amendment Bill 2019 very clearly violates the Constitution of India. It is immoral, I say again. It is unconstitutional.
सभी सदस्यों को, सदन को और आपके माध्यम से सदन के सदस्यों के माध्यम से पूरे देश की जनता को कहना चाहता हूं कि किसी भी डायमेंशन से ये बिल गैर संवैधानिक नहीं है, ना आर्टिकल 14 का उल्लंघन करता है। I do not have any qualm to opine that this is a regressive legislation. It is nothing but a targeted legislation against the minority people of our country. हमने किसी के साथ धर्म के आधार पर भेदभाव नहीं करा और मैं इस सदन को विश्वास दिलाना चाहता हूं आगे पर भी धर्म के आधार पर भेदभाव नहीं होगा, इसका मैं सदन को विश्वास दिलाना।
So is BJP's new political ploy constitutional is the big question. Now keep in mind, at the heart of this debate is the fact that this new bill, this new proposed law says that people, refugees from 6 different religions, from 3 specific countries, Pakistan, Afghanistan and Bangladesh, can be given citizenship in our country, but only of these 6 specific religions. So Hindus can get it, Christians can get it, Sikhs can get it, Jains, Buddhists and Parsis, these 6 religious refugees from these 3 countries can get citizenship, but not Muslims. Is this discriminatory? Is this against the principles of our constitution? Should we have a policy that's based on religion is the big question. Let me go across to our experts who are joining us this evening. Aishwarya Bhati, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court, along with Geeta Luthra, also joining us this evening. Good evening, Geeta Luthra, Senior Advocate of the Supreme Court as well. Let me start with you. Where do you stand on this debate, Ms. Luthra? Is this constitutional? We saw a huge debate about Article 14 yesterday, even in the Lok Sabha.
So it's very difficult for it to pass muster, but the only question is ultimately we do give asylum to those who, we give political asylum to those who are persecuted. For example, you would recall the Vietnamese people, you know, they were the boat people, they are given asylum, and they are given en masse asylum. Now this is creating a whole class within a class where you are saying, okay, let's give everyone asylum. Now for persecution, you can in fact in law, and that's the way refugee law is all over the world, you do give asylum. Now question is, are you discriminating? So you're taking 3 countries and you're saying people from these countries who belong to these 6 religious groups will be given a preferential treatment, and therefore they'll be entitled to citizenship. Now, to say that others should have been included, like Sri Lanka or some other country, I don't think that argument may be that apposite. But ultimately, one of the arguments that's being made is the Ahmadiyas in Pakistan, a Muslim sect that considers itself Muslim, but the main Islamic State doesn't treat them as Muslims, whether they face persecution and whether they should be included. And there'll be many examples of this nature. So the question is, can you take out 6 religious groups, say that they should be given preferential treatment,
right,
or the terms be relaxed for them, and whether that should be permissible? Now, it's actually very debatable.
Okay.
One of the arguments that may win the state, win the government the case, is the fact that political asylum is given to those minorities that are persecuted in a particular country. So that could be the only argument that would possibly uphold the validity of this amendment.
Okay, let me bring in Aishwarya Bhatti as well.
I can't see many other arguments that would carry the day.
Let me bring in Aishwarya Bhatti as well to the interesting point that Geeta Luthra made about the fact that, well, there are other sects and Muslim, sects in Pakistan, which is the Balochis, which is the Ahmadiyas, who've not been included in this. And then there are other nations as well. And then there are, for example, there's Rohingyas who are already in our country. They have not been included. In fact, the government has gone ahead and taken a very clear stand to say, no, Rohingyas will never be allowed in our country. We're going to throw them out. Now, if a government takes such a clear stand on certain religions and then another set of religions, then is this not discriminatory, Aishwarya Bhatti?
So Tanvi, let me give you my perspective of it. I think there are a few things that we must bear in mind. Firstly, that the basic act, Citizenship Act, is already there, which already prescribes for citizenship by birth, citizenship by descent, and citizenship by registration. This is an amendment which is being brought in, and this amendment actually facilitates or allows citizenship to be granted to religious minorities in these 3 countries. And these 3 countries, mind you, are not secular countries. They are Islamic countries where the state is not secular. The state follows a religion. Now, religious persecution invariably, I mean, the history has proven, and we have seen incidents from, myriad incidents from these 3 countries also, that religious persecution happens of religious minorities. Of course, the argument of Ahmadiyya is all very well and fine, but then you can talk about all other kinds of persecution also. The point is that this is an amendment that is made for the purpose of people who are facing religious persecution. It is not about a gender persecution or a casteist persecution or a social persecution or an educational persecution. There can be many kinds. We have to bear this in mind also, that we are talking about, this will apply to people who are not amenable already to Indian law and Indian constitution. So they're not citizens already. This is an extension of the sovereignty of the country. So the right of citizenship, you don't have the same parameters which are there when you are talking about rights to citizens. So those are very important things to bear in mind, and to my mind, I don't think there should be any problem in passing the constitutional muster for the Citizenship Amendment Bill. Of course, the protests in the Northeast will definitely have to be attended to politically.
Yes.
In fact, there are already provisions in the Amendment Act which prohibit the areas,
yes. So Aishwarya Bhatti, I will come to that aspect in just a bit, because that exactly validates my entire point that this is simply a political exercise and nothing more and nothing less, where a government and a political party that talks so much about integration and bringing in Kashmir and making it a part of our country is also looking at adding more states and parts of Northeast under the 6th schedule or the inner line permit and giving them special privileges separately. Politics is there, and we'll keep it aside for a point right now for a bit. And let's talk about the legality of it. And Mr. Vikas Singh, good evening to you. Let's also say good evening to Arima Sundaram and Sanjay Hegde. Mr. Singh, if I can come to you first, because we have you for just a very short amount of time. Is this constitutional as per Article 14, where the state cannot discriminate on the basis of religion? Does it apply to even who we decide to give asylum to and our citizenship to?
Article 14 and Article 21 are not confined to citizens of India. Now, this amendment which is being brought in is not for citizens of India, it is for every person residing in this country. And when you make an amendment of this kind, then it has to pass. And when you make an amendment of this kind, then it has to pass the muster of Article 1421 to be saved under 13, Article 13. Now, when you want to make a law and you say that you are making laws on the basis of people who are persecuted in other countries, then there is no way you can make a law where you exclude Muslims. Because when we got independence, we were a secular democracy right from the beginning, and our country had more than 15, if I'm not mistaken, more than 15% Muslims or almost 20% Muslims even at the time of independence. So if there are supposing Rohingyas from Myanmar or Ahmadiyas from Pakistan who have been persecuted in their country, and they are also similarly persecuted as Hindus in some other country, in a Muslim-dominated country, I don't see how any discrimination can be made in making this kind of a law. Because the moment you make this law, that law will not pass the constitutional test and will definitely be struck down if challenged in a court of law. So according to me, neither 14 nor 21, because 21 also says about right to life, and this can be also said to be a larger part of life. If you're wanting to give somebody citizenship, which is a very integral part of a proper living, then if you are giving it to some people and not giving it to the others on a discriminatory basis, then that also will be a ground for striking down this legislation. So we can't make a law thinking of some people in some countries being persecuted, when you are making laws basically for people residing within your country. So we are only to look at people residing within this country and the equality aspect of within this country. You can't justify it that I want to look into some countries where this persecution is being taking place and say that I'll justify the classification of people who are living in this country. So according to me, this law definitely will not pass the judicial scrutiny test and is bound to fail. Is clearly discriminatory because it has been made only to protect certain religions and not Muslims who are an integral part of this country, being a secular country.
Mr. Arima Sundaram, do you agree that this will not stand the test of the legal test at all? And at some point, somebody will also ask the question, why now? Suddenly now at this point, why are you looking at a policy or a law that only addresses 3 nations?
Well, as far as I'm concerned, in my view, this is not an unconstitutional law and can be constitutionally justified. But before I explain why, I want to make one thing very clear. We have a slight mix of ideas here. When you're testing the constitutionality of the law, you look at the law itself and you see its constitutionality or not. There might be a different political will behind making the law. The ruling party may have a given policy which you feel that policy is being furthered by the law they're doing. Maybe the legislature comes out with a law because the ruling party wants a particular policy which other people don't agree with and a lot of people disagree with. So it's not a question of whether you disagree with what is being done politically. It's not whether you disagree with the policy or not. But when it's in court, all that's going to be looked at is the law constitutional or not? Now, the fundamental error being made here is by not understanding the true nuances of Article 14 qua what is being done. Article 14 is very clear. You cannot discriminate on the ground of religion. However, Article 14 is equally clear that if a discrimination between two bodies of people is founded on a reasonable classification, on an intelligible differentia which has a nexus to what is to be obtained, then even though it discriminates, even though it differentiates, it will not be discrimination. It is differentiation without a discrimination. And that is protected under Article 14. State action which does that is protected. Now that becomes very relevant in this case. What is being done here? This is not a case of people coming into the country and saying, please allow me into the country. I'm being persecuted terribly by where I am. And then the country decides whether to allow them in or not. They've landed in Indira Gandhi International Airport and they're now going to come through immigration or not. They're asking for political asylum. Do we allow them in or not? This is not that kind of case.
Correct.
This is a case dealing with illegal migrants. Every one of them, whether Muslim, Hindu, Christian, Sikh, all of them who are being considered here are illegal migrants. The law with regard to illegal migrants stands since 1955. The Citizenship Act is very clear, and that law still stands and has stood for more than 60 years, which law says if somebody is an illegal migrant, they are not entitled to citizenship, they shall be detained, and they shall be deported to where they came from. Now, the effect of this is really that all these people ought to be deported and sent out of India. What the government has done is to say, look here, we want to make an exception because A, if people have stayed here long enough, now 6 years in this case, and B, if these people are people who have come from countries in which they are religious minorities and those countries are theocratic states, they are states which have a state religion, and they are a minority religion in that state, and that state has a clear distinction between people only because this religion of the state itself is something, then we can't force those people to go back to that country where they are minorities in a theocratic state. Therefore, they made an exception and said, those people who we will have to deport, because let's look at it this way. If you want to deport everyone, you have to deport them from where they came.
Right.
So where the differentiation came in is, will make an exception and not deport people to countries where they are religious minorities. Now, if that is the objective, then it has a rational nexus to what is the differentia, which is then people who are part of the religious minority of that country will come in a different group. So if it's a theocratic country, and here is somebody who's part of the religion of the theocratic country,
yes,
he'll definitely be on a different footing than the person who's of a different religion and will be a minority religion in the theocratic country.
No, but Mr.
So looked
Sundaram,
at purely from Article 14, I believe an answer can be placed by the government.
So, Mr. Sundaram, are you suggesting that we as a country decide on our policy, whom to give refuge or whom to make our citizen, whom to just make our citizen? Let's just talk about that, basis on where they are coming from and what standing do they have in that country. I mean, at the end of the day, then there are Ahmadiyas and Balochis in Pakistan. At the end of the day, there are also Tibetans. At the end of the day, there are also Tamilians from Sri Lanka who are all living in relief camps in our country, or and have been here for a while, and Bangladeshi Muslims. Now, either we can call all of them infiltrators and illegal immigrants who came here and say, all of you get out because I don't have the resources to take care of you, or we say, all right, you've come to us, you've lived as part of us for 6 years or 30 years, and so that's fine. Then now you are a citizen of this country. How do we make it selective and then a sub-segment of that selection and then another sub-segment and then say, oh, also you can't live in this part of my country or that part, only live in this specific part?
I gather that the answer you want to give me to give you is not an emotional answer, but a legal answer. And so let me view it legally.
Yes.
Emotionally, of course, everyone has been hurt by every country. India, after all, our population is limited enough that we can take far more people. Let's take the whole world and everyone is being hurt. Emotionally, it appeals to me, it appeals to you. But I gather that what you want from me is a legal answer, not an emotional answer.
You're right there,
So
yes.
let me address myself to the legal answer. The legal answer is very simply this. The legal answer is very simply this. And the answer lies in the question you asked. You said, is it for us to choose who to give a citizenship, who not to, who to allow in the country, who not to? That is not the issue in this case at all. They're all illegal migrants who, by the law of India as it stands,
Correct.
there is an act by which the government is enjoined to detain them, deport them, and send them back.
Okay.
The government says, look here, I want to make an exception to this law. I want to make an exception that people who have been here long enough and people who I'll be forced to deport to countries which are theocratic states and they are minorities. I don't want to do that.
Okay.
Now assume these people didn't come from those countries, came from countries which are secular also. Maybe the same yardstick could not apply. It applies because they came from theocratic countries where they are a minority. You asked about Sri Lanka, for example. The Tamil issue in Sri Lanka is not based on religion at all. It has nothing to do with it. Now, these are all different issues of different countries. The Rohingyas are not people who have come here because of a religious, it's a sectarian issue. These are all different issues. Now, maybe you're right.
Okay.
Maybe, therefore, somebody should come forward and say, look here, when the government is making rules for such people, they should also make a law for people like us. Otherwise, that is affronting my right under Article 14, and maybe that can be considered. But that does not mean that becomes a reason why this particular act is bad.
Okay.
It doesn't become a reason why this amendment bill becomes bad.
So while
to say that, look here, you should spread it wider, doesn't mean that this act is bad, if
Okay.
it can be justified.
I'm sure you know this, but I just want to highlight it again, Mr. Sundaram, that throughout the time that you were making your argument, Sanjay Hegde was very vehemently shaking his head. You've had a bit of a debate already with him in a previous show, but I'm going to ask Sanjay Hegde to respond to what you're saying right now.
I'm used to that. I'm used to that.
Yes. Sanjay Hegde, go ahead, please.
See, the point that Aryama misses is simple. The Citizenship Act does not have provisions for deportation. What has it is the Foreigners Act. The Foreigners Act is a pre-constitutional act, 1946. That was passed in the era where you had this fear that Germans and Japanese would come over during the World War and undermine the British Empire. After that, we have a little thing, a little red book called the Constitution of India. You know, that is not read very often. We all think that we know it. Article 14 of the Constitution provides for the equal protection of the law. Now, if this is what Aryama says, that this is a measure of protection, then that too has to be equal. You cannot say that I will protect some part of people who are religiously persecuted and I will not protect the others. If you are extending protection, do it equally. Or I don't believe that Aryama is advancing the proposition that some people are not like us. They are unlike us. Therefore, there can be intelligible differentia or reasonable classification in unreasonably treating them and keeping them apart. Sorry, that is not what India is about. India is a secular state which treats all people equally. We do not distinguish on the basis of religion. Any law which makes a distinction only on the basis of religion alone is totally suspect and unconstitutional. If you say that we can protect only Hindus, only Sikhs, only Parsis from our neighbors, and that the rest of them, if we determine that you are an illegal immigrant, that is basically a person who can't document his or his forefathers' entry into India, we are going to deport all of them, no matter what happens to them, then I do not think that is equal protection.
Okay.
That is an unequal protection extended only to some and not to the others.
Would you like me to respond? Or?
You cannot justify constitutional action or action under the Constitution by reference to what happens in other countries.
Okay.
You have to justify the Constitution based upon well-settled constitutional principles set through an examination of the text of the Constitution itself.
Okay, so let me get...
The text of the Constitution is that India is a secular republic which treats everybody alike.
Yes, please do, Mr. Sundaram.
Can I just respond to two inaccuracies of Mr. Hegde? Firstly, Mr. Hegde has used a bit of legal gymnastics. I like the way he talked about the Citizenship Act doesn't provide for it, the Foreigners Act provides for it, etc. The long and the short of it is, if a person is not a citizen of India, he can stay as long as the visa allows. After that, he has to be deported from India. You can try to do as much legal gymnastics as you want, but that is the basic issue. The second thing which he's glossing over repeatedly is the simple fact that they are illegal migrants. Being illegal migrants, they cannot remain in India. And if they cannot remain in India, we cannot throw them into the Bay of Bengal and the Arabian Sea. They will have to go back to the country from which they came. And therefore, is that country a theocratic country? Are they going to be a minority or are they not going to be a minority in that country? Becomes a relevant criteria. But we can go on debating this, as I'm sure it will be for months in the courts, but we'll see what happens finally. But I do want to say that unlike what Mr. Hegde and others like him feel, it is not an open and shut issue of discrimination at all.
Okay, in fact, let me bring in Aishwarya Bhati, who also argued on the same side as Arima Sundaram is. And Aishwarya, if I can ask you this question, will this not be asked, and will the courts, at some point not examine the fact that the government has only chosen specific nations, Islamic nations, and the refugees from those nations who are not any subsect of Islam, and has very conveniently at this point of time left all the other illegal immigrants or infiltrators or refugees from being decided upon. There are Rohingyas who live in our country. There are Tibetans who have been living in our country for a really, really long time. Will that not be asked of the government? Why not have a comprehensive policy for all such cases?
So, Tanvi, I don't think I can put it any better than how Sundaram sir has put it. But I will just, take some excerpts out of his answer and get back to you. See, Article 14 allows equal treatment of equals. That's what is the mandate of Article 14. But Article 14 also prohibits specifically that unequals cannot be treated equally. Now, a whole, issue is being made out as if the discrimination is being made or differentiation is being made on the basis of religion. Sundaram sir has very clearly and categorically brought out that the discrimination is not there. There is a differentiation which is based on an intelligible differentia. On the reasons, see, the reasons we have to understand very clearly. It's not the religion of the person. It is the religion of the country that you are sending this person back to. And those countries are not secular countries. These three countries are countries where the state follows a religion. And that religion is the majority religion. Now, religious persecution does not happen of religious majority of the country. It happens only of religious minorities. It does not even happen in secular countries. At least it is not state-sponsored, and it's a crime to do it in secular countries. So these are very important factors to bear in mind. Also, you talk about Tibetans and Rohingyas, etc. See, political asylum is something completely different. That has to be understood in a different manner. Also, we have to bear in mind that the original Citizenship Act still remains. There is citizenship availability there in terms of on birth, on on basis of your registration and on the basis of descent. So this is just a category that is carved out. Again, you know, on the point of why not for others, Sundaram sir has covered that also, that you can't, you know, talk about the political decisions of a government. Political decisions have to be answered in the elections in a democracy, that the government has to answer to the people's court. But in a court of law, it is the constitutionality of the law that matters, and it has to be in terms of the constitutional principles.
So I have another question, and you know, whoever wants to explain this to me, I'm simply trying to understand, while there may be one set of policy that you, as a nation, we may want to have, to who do we give asylum to? Who do we take in as refugees? The other question is, who do we give equal rights in our country as a citizen, a right to vote, a right to use the natural resources, as a citizen, a right to be part of the society? How do we decide on that? Should that then not come under Article 14, Geeta Luthra?
So Tanvi, first I wanted to address one of the points which Mr. Sundaram said, which is that we are looking at minorities which will go back to Islamic countries and who will feel that they are being discriminated against, and that's why we are protecting all these people. But how do you answer for the Ahmadiyas who are in India and who may be sent back? So I think we can't really answer it on the logic that is being given. However, it is for this country, which is a sovereign country, to decide which cases it is making an exception in, because until a person is a citizen, he can't be saying my Article 14 rights are affected. So, you know, it's like begging the question. But what I'm just questioning the logic, and that logic may extend to other cases. But what Mr. Sundaram said was, the reason Tamils are different, the reason Rohingyas are different, is because these three countries, they are countries which have, which are countries which follow a particular religion. There is a state religion, and that's why those who've come, we can't throw them into the sea. We therefore want to make sure that they don't go back where they are prosecuted and persecuted. I agree with that. But what if the Ahmadiyas feel that if they go back, will be persecuted in that country? So there are many issues to debate, I feel. It's not as simple as is being said, but we can't first give them rights as citizens and then say they should be given citizenship, because they don't have that right in the first place.
Yes.
They are illegal migrants.
Yeah.
So the question is, you know, that is what is the question which we have, a bigger question, and that's why there is a likelihood it will pass muster in a court of law, except these anomalies need to be explained, and they are rather larger than life. They do need to be explained.
Mr. Sundaram, would you have anything to say to that?
Yeah, I mean, more or less, I think what has been said is in agreement with what I'm saying. And I can't say much more except to say that to distinguish the particular sect and say that because amongst Muslims there are sects who are going to be persecuted is again totally a different issue. Okay. That does not arise. Within a country, it's like saying that within India, there could be a state like Tamil Nadu, which is so anti-Brahmin, all Brahmins feel persecuted. Now, that is a different issue altogether. What we are dealing with is a state which declares by its own constitution that I'm a religious state, I'm a theocratic state, and I am Muslim. Within the Muslim, there may be different sects, but the state is only concerned with Islam and says I'm an Islamic state.
Yeah, but fair enough,
in that
Mr.
case, the
Sundaram,
person becomes a minority. If you thereafter say, look, you should allow somebody else, it's a political decision.
While Bangladesh does have Islam as its religion, it does go on to say in its constitution that it's secular. No, but Bangladesh does go on to say that it is secular, in its constitution, in its
Yes,
nature.
but
So can we?
allow
Okay.
me,
Yes.
allow me to, fine, allow me to complete what I was saying. Allow me to say that let's also extend it. What Ms. Luthra was saying was let's extend it further. To say let's extend it would be an extension of the law, which will be a political decision.
Yeah.
Maybe the people who feel it should be extended to them also can go to court and say Article 14 therefore they should also be extended to me, and not I shouldn't be left out of it. In which case the court will consider whether to extend it to them, but will not say because it was not extended to them we are striking down the rest of the act. That is the erroneous approach being taken. People who feel they should also be treated the same way can go to court and ask the court to issue a mandamus to say they should be treated the same way. But it's not to say that because these people are not being treated the same way, the whole act goes. You don't throw the baby out of the bathwater. If anything, you fill in the anomalies. No court tries to approach a case to throw the baby out of the bathwater.
But
they first try to uphold the constitutionality.
Okay.
And if they find there are certain things which would otherwise a constitutional act could be attacked, there's also the doctrine of then reading down the act to bring it within the constitution. So what Ms. Luthra's suggestion, why can't some others also be considered? She agreed with me on principle on what I had said.
Yes.
She said, but then why exclude so and so? Now, whether you should exclude so and so or not can be a different question in itself. The government could consider that. It could be a different question in itself.
Okay.
But that is not an argument to say this act is bad.
Okay, let me turn this around then and take it to Sanjay Hegde to say, Sanjay Hegde, again, it comes down to, can a policy of inclusion, which is essentially our Citizenship Amendment Bill, because it allows you to become a citizen of our country, can a policy of inclusion be only for specific sects or religion?
Who told you that it's a policy of inclusion? It's a policy of exclusion. It only says that we will include you in India as long as you're not a Muslim. That is the essence of it. There's no beating around the bush. If you are a Muslim, you are not welcome in India. You are not welcome to apply for citizenship. That runs a coach and horse through your constitution, which is essentially secular. This is the same argument that in the United States Constitution was used, saying separate but equal. We will have separate treatment for those who are of color. And that is equality. We are giving them the same. It took the US Supreme Court nearly 100 years to come back and say that separate but equal was inherently unequal. I put it to you that what you are doing here is essentially introducing inequality in an equal constitution. A constitution which is religion neutral is being administered so that one particular religion is excluded. The party in power may not like it. The party in power may be in an absolute majority. But what a constitution is and what constitutional morality is to have a holy parchment, a compact which is beyond the reach of transient majorities. We started off a secular nation promising equality to all. We started off as an antithesis to our neighbors who discriminated on the basis of religion. We cannot go and copy our neighbors. That is not who we are. And whatever whataboutery you go about saying that no, we are looking at it with one eye, saying that okay, these people will be protected, these people will not be protected. No, sir. The Article 14 of the Constitution applies to citizen and non-citizen alike. All persons will have equality before the law and equal protection of the law. If you cannot extend equal protection, Article 14 is a dead letter.
Okay, so, but does it apply to people who are not citizens of our country right now? They're not legitimately citizens of our country, Mr. Hegde. They're simply illegal immigrants?
Please read the Constitution. Article 14 is for all persons, and that is settled. It is not for citizens and non-citizens.
So then
As far as Article 16 is concerned, 16 says
Yes.
that it will not deny to any citizen based solely on religion. Now, if you make a citizenship law dependent only on religion, that too is running a coach through both Article 14 and 16.
Then Aishwarya Bhati, help me understand this one more time. How is this constitutional?
So, yes. So, let me just respond quickly to what the points that Mr. Hegde has made. You know, Mr. Hegde is right absolutely when he says that Article 14 is available to citizens and non-citizens both. It is applicable to everybody in India. Equality before law and equal protection of laws is guaranteed as a fundamental right. Let me also tell you, Tanvi, that equality and secularism have also been, designated and identified as basic structure of the Constitution. So I'm sure Mr. Hegde knows this very well, that, the transient majority that he spoke about cannot even amend the Constitution to the, bring any law to the extent of taking away the basic structure of the Constitution, and equality and secularism both are there. But what I differ with is the proposition of these two classes being equals. You know, like I mentioned earlier also, equality, equal treatment of equals is what is envisaged in Article 14. That is the mandate, equal treatment of equals. But if you perpetrate equality amongst two classes which are unequals, then you are actually perpetrating inequality. The classification test that Mr. Sundaram spoke about, that is a well ingrained and, it has stood the scrutiny of law. Classification test has two ingredients. One, the two classes that you are differentiating between, they should be formed on an intelligible differentia. Secondly, they should have a reasonable nexus with the object that is sought to be achieved. Now let's see two classes. Two classes are, one, classes which are religious minorities in those countries, and vis-a-vis the second category is religious majorities of those countries. So two classes based on intelligible differentia. Now the nexus that is sought to be achieved is, now these people will not be given citizenship just because they are facing social persecution or domestic problems or any other kinds of job harassment, any other kinds of problems. What is contemplated here is religious persecution. So religious persecution, when that is spoken about, it cannot happen, at least the mandate of law can never allow a religious persecution in a secular country. This majority and majority religion also does not face a religious persecution. It happens only to minorities. So if you are allowing the lower
often in our country, Aishwarya Bhati, this is given to us, and especially by those who are backers of the ruling party right now, that the majority in our country is suffering. The majority in our country has been sidelined, and they have for long been suppressed, and their voice has been suppressed, and it's the minorities who've actually gotten all of the benefits. So, I mean, the argument can go both ways, and essentially it still then boils down to, well, how can you decide on any policy on the basis of religion? If it is on humanitarian grounds, if we feel that there is some humanitarian purpose about opening up our doors and bringing people in, or allowing the people who have infiltrated our country to now become legitimate citizens of our country, and if it has to be on humanitarian grounds, how can it be on the basis of what God they follow or they pray to? It has to be about something else. I'm sorry, it essentially boils down to this. That's my belief. Of course, legally speaking, you all are the experts, and you presented what you feel will probably end up in courtrooms one day and will be the arguments that are presented in the courtrooms one day. I'm going to thank all of you for joining us right now to help us understand, because this debate happened in Parliament, in Lok Sabha yesterday, will take place in Rajya Sabha tomorrow. The whole conversation will be whether it's constitutional or not. And that perhaps someday the courts will have to decide on, may have to decide on. Apart from that, this is definitely political. This is definitely a big political move by the BJP. BJP proposes this law and pushes for this law for political reasons. People like Mamata Banerjee oppose this law for political reasons. Political parties like Congress have played these kind of vote bank politics and politics over religion for ages. They've mastered the art of doing that simply for political reasons. The entire reason why we're even having this debate is because some of these people who've entered our country in the last 50, 60 years did it with the knowledge of the government and were allowed to do so because they thought it would be beneficial for them at one point. The other aspect which the government must answer to us at some point is what's happening in the Northeast. Northeast is on the edge again. There are protests that are unfolding and intensifying even as I speak, despite the fact that the government has come out and given assurance that we are not going to touch these northeastern states. Except a part of Assam, every other state is actually going to be out of the ambit of this law. So all of these illegal immigrants or refugees who will be given citizenship will not impact the demographics of the northeastern states. People are not buying this. They're extremely angry tonight. They feel that one more time they have been betrayed by the center, by the government that sits in Delhi and doesn't understand the problems of the Northeast. Remember, this essentially started with the Northeast, where you saw a huge part of the illegal immigrants coming in from Bangladesh and settling in various parts of the Northeastern states. But people tonight are saying, don't make this communal. This is not about one religion or the other. This is about outsiders coming into our homes and taking our place. Joining me right now, in fact, is a national award-winning filmmaker, Janu Barua. He made headlines today after he decided that he is going to withdraw his film Bhoga Kiriki, which means broken window, that was produced by Bollywood star Priyanka Chopra. And he's decided to withdraw this film from the upcoming Assam Film Awards in protest against the Citizenship Amendment Bill. He has said that politicians are disrobing the motherland only because of their power politics. So good evening, Mr. Barua. Thank you for speaking with us. What made you take this stand today? What's the message you're sending out?
Yes, I just decided this morning actually to withdraw my film from the state awards in Assam in my protest against the CAB, that Citizen Amendment Bill, which I feel absolutely very strongly, I feel that is very much against Assam and its indigenous people. And it's a very dangerous bill, and we are very unhappy that it is here last night it was passed in the parliament, and we are very unhappy about it.
Yes, but the government, Mr. Barua, has now repeatedly said that most of Northeast is exempted, is out of the ambit of this specific law, barring few parts of Assam. Even the districts which have these indigenous tribes will not come under this law. Are you not convinced by these assurances from the government?
No, in fact, it will be more dangerous. Dangerous in a sense that, that when you minus the indigenous, minus the inner permit areas and the 6 scheduled areas, Assam is just very small. It's almost like just that only the Brahmaputra Valley and the Barak Valley, and that is if the hordes of foreigners, they come and try to settle there, it's absolutely Assamese would go into minority, and that's a very big dangerous I mean fear actually. And Assamese people actually, they are very rightly, they are protesting against it. That's why. And as a individually also, I'm very much, for the last almost 2 years I have been voicing against it, and we are very much concerned about it. And for example, say that I know my society, Assamese society, and it's one of the most beautiful societies, and compared to the other societies around the world. And for example, say our first king, Shaolung Sukafa, and our social leader, Shrimanta Shankardev, both of them have given this society in such a profound, beautiful society where all the people actually of all religions, caste, creed, everything, they live together. And then our main thing is that it's our language. And tomorrow, if we go on the minority, and our language will go. And I can foresee, say after 50 years or 100 years, there will be no Assamese language, and that's very dangerous. That's why we must protest. Not only us, actually, entire country should protest and in favor of us. It's very unfortunate in case of Assam. In case of Assam, it's very unfortunate. Then in other states like Gujarat, Maharashtra, Telangana, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, everywhere actually those states, their fate and future, they are always controlled by their own people. And for us, for Assam, it's very unfortunately since independence, we are always controlled by Delhi and not by our leaders. That's the most unfortunate. And that is somewhere something is wrong. And in last 50 years, we have seen Assam got disintegrated in so many parts. And that is what people don't want at all. We want to live together with a very good, homogeneous, beautiful society that we already had. Now that is breaking. And on top of that, what it is coming in, some kind of communal angle into it. So that is most unfortunate.
What you said something, there, the fact that the center is failing to understand what Assam wants, what Assam needs, and Assam has been let down again. Do you believe that this is simply boiled down to politics again, with the genuine issue of Assamese being completely forgotten and sidelined?
Yes, very much. This entire issue is, very genuine, and we have been concerned about for last almost 3 decades. Actually, people, particularly students, have they protested, and all this agitation took place. And in fact, that all the leaders, who had led that agitation, they are the leaders today, and they have forgotten that. For example, that the clauses of Assam Accord, it is almost forgotten now, and if some new accord is coming in, so this cab is coming in, and that negates totally that Assam Accord, and that is very unfortunate. The leadership is very much at fault, and I would say that since independence, after independence, we had a good beginning politically, but later actually we have found that all the political leadership has become very weak, and everything is decided by Delhi.
But Delhi says, and the central government says, Mr. Barua, that the NRC, the National Registry of Citizens, will help throw out the Bangladeshi Muslims, the illegal immigrants who've come, and then it will only be a small percentage of these other religion refugees who will be given citizenship or who can continue to live here. Are you not convinced that that is going to resolve the problem?
No, I don't buy that argument, because in practical purpose it's impossible. Tomorrow if you open the floodgate to the foreigners, and you cannot control that, and that is impossible to control, and I don't buy that argument at all.
So what should the government do at this point? Should there be a policy which is based on religion at all?
See, Assam's society, it's a society of indigenous people. Those indigenous people is not of Assamese actually is a language centric, and one language, and there are so many other people, mixed. They live together. All religions are there, all caste, creed, everything is there, and we enjoy that society. I'm very proud of that society, everyone actually. Now that we want that to continue, and but tomorrow if that whole demographic, the political demographic is, disturbed, definitely this entire society will break, and that is very unfortunate. As I said earlier, that the communal angle coming in, that is most unfortunate at such a time. I just want to add something that this is something actually that our leaders have failed to understand, and it is only the people they realize this from time to time, from generation to generation, and is in Assam's case is very unfortunate that every time that people have to agitate, people have to do protest, to get anything. And that is a very unfortunate situation in Assam. So leaders also from time to time, from time to time, they have never realized that. They all the time, they don't even study the realities of Assam. The realities of Assam. And its realities are completely different from the rest of the country. And that, in fact, I would appeal to the national leaders also to come to Assam and then they try to feel that society, feel the community, feel that entire society of the indigenous people, and then discuss. Then you see that whether it is proper or not.
Well, I'm glad that you spoke to us, that you came on our platform, and we're able to bring this message out to the rest of the country through Mirror now, because India needs to understand this as well. Why is Northeast angry tonight and feeling betrayed by the government's move? Mr. Barua, thank you so much for joining us. Fact of the matter is, viewers, the people in the Northeast are not happy. The government seems to have kept the gun on their shoulders and fired this shot and played this move, saying that this is going to solve your problem and we're going to get all the illegal immigrants out and resolve the entire problem. But that's not what is happening. Here are people from the Northeast, from Assam and Meghalaya and Manipur and Tripura, who are all saying, well, don't communalize the issue. The idea was not to say send the Muslims out and keep the Hindus in. The idea was to say that this is our land, protect us from illegal immigrants and outsiders. And that is what they're angry about. The rest of the country is still debating, completely divided on whether or not there should be a policy to begin with that allows somebody to become a citizen of a country like ours, a secular country, a country that has over a dozen religions, 1 million gods that we pray to and respect, 1,000 languages and many more dialects and castes and subcastes. Should a country like ours really have a policy to give citizenship to somebody on the basis of their religion? I don't think so. Time to you to think about it and get your message across to the government. Thank you so much for joining us on this conversation. For the second time in their history, Russia has been banned for a period of 4 years from competing in any international sporting event. They were slapped with the blanket ban after a wide range of doping scandal was actually exposed. The ban has been handed out by the World Anti-Doping Agency, or WADA as it's known as, which is the primary watchdog. According to WADA, Russia carried out state-sponsored, and this is the big one, state-sponsored doping program. That Russia actually hid the doping violations that were being carried out by its athletes. That Russia, as in an organized way, manipulated lab data that was handed over to the investigators repeatedly. That Russia failed to meet conditions for its reinstatement. Now, the country of Russia has been banned from events such as the 2020 Olympic Games. Imagine that, one more time. Also from the European Football Championship in 2020. For any athletic championships between 2020 and 2022. And of course, the Football World Cup that takes place in 2022. In none of these big international world events will Russia be able to participate as a country. The ban has been slammed by Russia, of course, with President Vladimir Putin calling this decision political in nature. Meanwhile, athletic legend Edwin Moses, who's also the chairman of the United States Anti-Doping Agency, has said that clean athletes were not really being cared for. So what does this really mean, this scandal really mean for the Russian athletes? What does it mean for the world in general? And the kind of doping violations that we're seeing, is masking really becoming that prevalent? In fact, just to help us understand and to answer our basic questions, we have Dr. P.S.M. Chandran, President of the Indian Federation of Sports Medicine and former Director of Sports Medicine for Sports Authority of India. Thank you so much, Dr. Chandran, for joining us. If you can just help us understand what exactly is it, that collectively Russia did. How do you rig these dope tests? How do you mask?
It is not a question of masking for which Russia has been punished now. It all happened with the Sochi Olympic Winter Games, where Russian athletes were supported by the system for doping. And subsequently, when an inquiry was conducted, WADA asked Russia to produce the documents. So later it is found that documents were also manipulated. These are the two reasons for which Russia has been banned from world sports now. But one thing I would like to say here is that the decision by WADA is absolutely shocking. We all know that doping has come into sports and it is going to stay there. Whether you like it or not, doping is going to stay there. So how best we can control doping, that should be the headache for people. And keeping countries away from sports, who is the loser? The country is not the loser. The sports lovers are the losers. Athletes are the losers. And Russia is one of the top 3 countries in the world as far as sports is concerned. If they don't participate in Olympics and World Cup, you and me, we are the losers. We don't see the best athletes in the world. So why should we go to that extreme? WADA, why should they abuse their authority or go beyond a point? Who has given such authority to WADA to act on a country? WADA code is meant for athletes, to control doping on athletes, and there are definite punishment when a sanction mentioned in WADA code. But when it comes to a country as a whole, WADA should have gone to higher authorities, like let the CAS, if the CAS has given this punishment, it is understandable. Now the situation is that Russia has to appeal to CAS to go against his verdict, which is unfortunate. And all the athletes who are there in training, all the athletes now who are training in Russia now, what is their future? For example, take the case of gymnastics. It's very young girls and boys come into gymnastics at the age of 16, 18 and all, they become world champions. And after that, there is no future for them as far as gymnastics is concerned. But if they are banned for 4 years, what life or career remains for them? And where is the end to it? All these youngsters suffer, and they are given some...
Dr. Chandran, if I can break this down, and before I come to the point that you're making about this being an extreme step, and if there were any other options, I just want to understand, how did this continue for so long? I mean, from what it seems, as a country, they were cheating the entire system.
See, this accusation has happened long back with East Germans when they were winning the world championships, world medals. They were accused of state-sponsored doping. Later, they turned to China. Russia has also been targeted. Let us be very honest. This problem is existing in every country. Some people are open, some people do it in a very quiet manner. And when they win and all, then only the issue surfaces. And don't you think that Balco lab issue in America was one of the worst scandals in doping? And all the American athletes confessed that Balco laboratory has supplied them medicine dopes for participating in international competitions. It was the biggest scandal in the history of doping. And what happened to America? Nobody banned America at that time. We know that the problem is there, but we don't keep if you want WADA or you want sports, WADA cannot exist at the expense of sports. Sports has to be there. That is prime. Athletes they have to be there. If athletes are not there, sports is not there, WADA won't be there at all.
Okay, no, but I'm just trying to understand, Dr. Chandran, you say that whether it's about sports or WADA, but do we really want sports where, the doping rules are just thrown out of the window, where the lab tests are, manipulated, the results are manipulated, and people who are actually taking these external substances are the ones who are creating these world records? How is that fair?
We all know that how much the percentage of doping cases, positive doping cases, let WADA statistics say that it is around 2%. That means, let us believe that 90% of athletes are clean. They are not in doping. So majority is not in doping, but an issue comes like this, you ban a country, all innocent athletes in the country also go under the ban. What is the offense they are committed? If the government has done something, or if some sports officials have done something wrong, why should the athletes suffer? That's the question. Why do you want them to be away from Olympics? Olympics meant for youngsters. Now, Olympics is not meant for officials and governments. It is meant for athletes. And we want the best athletes to participate. And if they are found to taken dopes, there is a system, there is WADA, they can find out and punish the athletes, and sanctions can be given to athletes. Why do you want to go beyond a point? Why are you over-enthusiasm, overkill? Why this obsession for punishment? Why do you want to go for the overkill? Again, I'm saying, why do you want to do that? You have to tackle a problem in a very judicious manner, intelligent manner, so that sport survives at any cost. not WADA survives. Sports has to survive. And that without sport, there is no athletes, no sports officials. Let me honestly ask one thing. Now they have said that Russian officials cannot participate, attend any meets and all international meets. You know that in International Olympic Committee, there are 2 Russian life members. There are 2 life members in the International Olympic Committee. Will they WADA ask the International Olympic Committee Russian members to resign? And one of the members was in charge of a anti-doping program in Russia during 2016. And these 2 officials, will they be spared? Will let the WADA come out and be honest? If they want to ban the Russian officials, let them ban the IOC members from Russia. Okay. And International Sports Federation, many of them are Russians or headed by Russians.
Okay, so you're saying don't make the athletes pay, don't make the sportspersons pay for this. If it is individuals or if it is a country problem, make those officials pay for it. Why risk the future and the sporting career of hundreds of these athletes who may genuinely have some skill? Difficult to differentiate at this point of time who has the skill or who just gets away and gets the medals because they're able to rig the system and cheat the system. But I understand what you're saying, Dr. Chandran. Completely out of time. Thank you so much for joining us and helping us understand just what is it that we're looking at and the larger impact of this decision of the World Anti-Doping Agency to keep Russia out of the international sporting events from Olympics to the World Cup soccer.